Fletcher Rhoden, and this is Quotes and Quips. Today, words of wisdom from U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Quotes and Quips is brought to you by my website, FletcherRhoden.com. That's where you'll find a link to my Amazon authors page, where you can download my books in their various formats, including audiobook. And there's a link to my Spotify artists page, where you can download my albums in their various subgenres. I've got new albums for 2024. Or you can download my music anywhere at all over the internet. Wherever you like to download your favorite music, you can download mine. But at my website, I've got free music you can only get there. So check it out. Okay, well, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Full disclosure, my initials happen to be FDR. Fletcher Darwin Rhoden is my name. Pure coincidence, my brothers and I were all named after Enlightenment figures. Charles Darwin is my namesake, or I'm his namesake, I guess. Anyway, FDR, though, always liked him. Liberal like I am. And he's got a lot of quotes. And he was the U.S. president at a crucial time. He's a pivotal president, one of the greats. Oft quoted, and here's just about his most common quote. I believe this is his biggest hit on his quotes album. And it is this: "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." So without the ham-bone accent, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. You know, so many of these quotes, I've never heard the voice of the people who actually said them. How do I know what Julius Caesar sounded like? Anyway, so we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Interesting. Now this, of course, these were words of inspiration to the free world in the face of the cataclysm that was World War II. And what I believe he was trying to inspire in the Western, in the Allied mind, because it wasn't just the United States he was talking to, it wasn't. When FDR spoke, the world listened. And he was urging everyone to remain calm, that the greatest threat to stability was panic and a lack of reason. You see, in the human psyche, there are always two things at play. Always. There is emotion and there is reason. In every human psyche at all times. But it is never true that they are ever equal. You know, always in the human psyche, one thing is prevailing above the other. They coexist, but never equally. You're always more rational than you are emotional, or you're emotional much more than being rational and reasonable. You can't be reasonable if you are overwhelmed with emotion. Emotion precludes reason. Okay? And by the same token, reason precludes emotion. Because if you're being reasonable, you're not going to be emotionally overwhelmed. Right? So I think what FDR was saying was allow reason to govern, not emotion. Because fear is an emotion. What he's saying is remain calm. Don't be carried away by the fear of the future, because that could create paralysis and disorganization. And what we have to do in this time, my fellow Americans, what FDR was insinuating, was that we have to stay calm and stay reasonable. Instead of being emotional, don't be fearful, be thoughtful. Now, as a younger man, this quote always struck me odd. Because fear is important in life. Fear is what prevents you from walking off the top of a building and falling to your death below. Fear of dying, right? Fear of going to jail makes you want to obey the law. I mean, look, you obey the law because laws are good, laws help society. Without laws, we don't have a society. Laws are generally reasonable. A relative of mine once said, the person said, well, without religion, what stops you from raping and killing as many people as you want? And this person said, well, I already rape and kill as many people as I want. None. So, you know, a lot of it, you don't do things always because you're fearful of the ramifications. If you do the right thing because you're afraid of getting punished for doing the wrong thing, then you're not doing the right thing. Not really. So, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Fear has its place in society. Fear has its place in the human psyche. Fear is what keeps you from swimming in shark-infested waters, because you don't want to be eaten, because you're afraid of that, because that'll hurt, and you'll be dead. And those are things that are worth being afraid of. A person who lives without fear of anything is not being rational. If it's reason versus emotion, then a lack of fear in its entirety strikes me as neither one. It's just, you know, what I think is that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, is telling us it is all too human to be fearful. So watch out for it. He's not saying live without fear. He's not, because nobody could do that, particularly not in the early 1940s. What he's saying is live with the fear. There was a book. There was a book about gun usage, and it was something like "Be afraid, but do it anyway," something like that. Maybe this was a self-help book of some kind, and it's basically the same thing. It's not that you won't be afraid. You will be afraid. You should be afraid. In this day and age, we should all be very, very afraid. But govern it. Govern the fear. Understand that fear is an emotion, and that reason, either reason will temper emotion, or emotion will temper reason. So let reason be your guide, not emotion. Understand it, accept it, let it contribute to your position, whatever your position is, but don't let it govern you. Don't let it reign supreme. Reason above emotion. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, because when emotion overtakes us, we lose our ability to be rational. And that is our greatest survival tactic. Now, again, in America today, we're very fearful. People on both sides of the aisle are very fearful, and some of that fear, I think, is well-founded, and some of it is not. And I'm not going to get too deep into it. But if we can all remember that fear is how you are most easily manipulated, make you afraid, and you'll be so emotional, you won't have reason. And once you're unreasonable, you can be easily manipulated. I think when FDR said we have nothing to fear but fear itself, he meant because it is by fear that we're most easily manipulated. And it is by fear that we can be turned against one another. And it is by fear that we can destroy one another and be destroyed from within. And if an outside enemy or an inside enemy can infect us with that fear, then that is the true danger. That's the enemy. Many people have said that no foreign government could ever prevail against the United States. The only way that the United States will fall is from an internal struggle. But that is this. That's fear. They're using fear to pit us against one another, to tear the country apart. Fear renders you emotional and incapable of reason. And in that act, in that state, you can be made to do almost anything. So, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself? Yeah, because that's how they get us. That's how they manipulate, by fear. That's what we should learn from that quote, I believe. And you'll hear more about what I believe on the next Quotes and Quips. I'm here every Monday at noon on this YouTube channel. In the meantime, you can watch my other show, Tracking the Lone Wolf, on its own YouTube channel. Tracking the Lone Wolf. That's a show from 2023. Go to my website, check out my books and my music. Watch this show again next week, and until then, bye, Mary.